Are the controversies related to Bubba Wallace ever going to stop? The number 45 driver for 23XI Racing just can't seem to stay out of the spotlight, and his actions have triggered Kyle Petty yet again. The 23XI Racing driver has committed a true crime at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and it seems like he doesn't have the guts to go public and talk about this incident on TV. So, what grinded Kyle Petty's gears this time? Before we get into that, we are offering you a chance to win $250. Stay with us for more info. Bubba Wallace has crashed intentionally into Kyle Larson at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway a couple of weeks ago, after being passed by being pushed into the wall. If you think about it, Wallace has barely touched the wall, and even if he did touch the wall, this is a common practice in NASCAR, and it's nothing personal or illegal. Still, Wallace's actions afterwards have shown us what kind of a human being he is and what kind of a driver he is. He hunted Kyle Larson after being passed just to intentionally crash into him and take out Christopher Bell, a legit championship contender, out of the race as collateral damage. After doing this, Wallace confronted Larson personally by pushing and shoving him, and the fact that Larson reacted so calmly to this situation and was not aggressive towards Wallace has probably led to the fact that this incident ended up without bigger repercussions. Had it not been for the NASCAR safety marshals, Wallace was likely going to punch Larson, and the repercussions then would likely have been much more than a one-race ban. But we'll discuss the penalty later, as Kyle Petty had some words to say about that too. Let's go to the latest development of things, as Bubba Wallace was called for an interview on NBC. During Sunday's countdown to Green pre-race show in Miami, Petty discussed the Wallace incident and the penalty that was given to the number 45 driver with Marty Schneider and Steve Letarte. After repeating the same words again and saying that NASCAR gave a very light penalty to Wallace for his actions, Petty received an interesting piece of information from Schneider, who said that Wallace declined a Zoom interview for the show. The host then asked Petty what he thought about the driver's responses this week, including his midweek apology on Twitter, to which Petty replied, "I applaud Bubba and I applaud 23XI for putting this out," said Petty for the apology. "But in a world, and I'm cynical, so let's just go ahead and say that, in a world of social media where we post everything, silence sometimes says more than words that are written. And we have heard nothing from Bubba Wallace since this incident happened. We have heard nothing publicly until yesterday. Denny Hamlin finally spoke up, and kudos to Denny Hamlin for speaking up on behalf of 23XI, but the silence from that camp has been deafening." Denny Hamlin is the co-owner of 23XI Racing, and the fact that he had a very bad third stage of the race after running in 7th place on the second stage goes to show that the NASCAR gods have possibly intervened in giving the team and everybody related to the team proper repercussions now that NASCAR isn't reacting the way it's supposed to. But what does Hamlin have to say about Bubba Wallace? Obviously, the driver's actions are something that put a black mark on 23XI Racing, but even with their decision to condemn these actions and judge them with the strongest possible judgment tone, the fact that Wallace's behavior is truly out of control is something that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Hamlin talked to the reporters, elaborating on the situation that escalated at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, saying, "Obviously, he was certainly frustrated with the on-track part of it, which I totally understand. Larson put him in a bad spot there. I've done it many times this year where I've kind of squeezed. That's why William got so mad. These cars just coming off the corner have a weird air buffer that you get someone to the inside of you and it just kind of pushes your car up. I understand why he is mad. I think he understands the bigger picture, and I kind of explained to him it's tough when you've got a big M on your back and you're walking down the infield. Just a bad look for us." This isn't the first time that Wallace has been involved in controversies, and the fact that NASCAR did absolutely nothing apart from the one-race ban to properly punish Wallace for his behavior is something that doesn't sit right with many of the NASCAR experts, Kyle Petty being one of them. When talking about the punishment that was given to Wallace, Petty had an interesting response, continuously saying that this penalty is truly a joke for a guy like Wallace, and that the suspension should have continued until the end of the year and not with a one-race ban. He should have been suspended for the rest of the year. He drives for Denny Hamlin, who has been vocal about safety. His teammate, Kurt Busch, the only reason he's in the number 45 car is his teammate's career was all but ended because of an accident in this car that the drivers have vocalized that it needs to be safer. He turns a guy in the right rear into the outside wall intentionally. Steering brake? That's laughable. Turns a guy into the outside wall, then walks across the racetrack. First, you intentionally wreck somebody. That's a suspension. He walks across the racetrack and cars are going by him on both sides. That's not safe. That should be another suspension. Physically confronts a driver, shoves him, that's a physical confrontation. If I do that on the sidewalk, I'm in handcuffs somewhere. So he physically confronts this driver, shoves an official, doesn't get an ambulance, walks back to the pits, and then stands and bold-faced tells a fib. The lesson should be the rest of the year. Just the rest of the year. That's just me. It's obvious that Kyle Petty doesn't have a high opinion of Bubba Wallace, and the fact that Bubba has denied an interview after the race just goes to show that he is probably ashamed of his actions, and it's not something that he would like to discuss at this moment. There has been an incident involving Kyle Larson at the Miami race, and the Hendrick Motorsport driver bumped Martin Truex Jr. on the pit road. This resulted in Martin spinning around, and it was a situation that many fans have called to have the same repercussion as the Wallace one. There has been one fan that asked for all of those NASCAR fans and pundits, especially Kyle Petty, to call for Larson's suspension to last throughout the year, just like he did for Bubba Wallace. This tweet saw Kyle Petty respond as he laughed it off and wrote, "I'm sorry that you've never had Christmas at your home. That makes me sad that you've never seen apples and oranges." With this response, Kyle Petty has probably hinted that the fan is mixing two different situations and wants to have the same punishment for two different situations. Another situation that also emerged at the Las Vegas Motorway was how NASCAR penalized Joe Gibbs and his crew for not bolting the tire properly to Busch's car. Although, according to the rulebook, a penalty should be applied to the team for the safety hazard of the car, the fact that this resulted in a 4-race ban while Bubba's actions of intentionally pushing and shoving official marshals and drivers on the grid ended in a 1-race ban is something that doesn't sit right with many NASCAR fans. What Kyle Petty eventually pointed out is that NASCAR needs to do a much better job when they're handing penalties to the teams that have broken the rules. A 1-race ban is one form of a penalty, but for the actions that Bubba Wallace has caused on the track by intentionally crashing into Kyle Larson and then blaming the former champion for the outcome of the accident is literally a slap on the wrist. On the other hand, you have a loose wheel that didn't hurt anyone and was an unintentional mistake. True, a penalty should be applied because somebody can get killed in situations like this, but when you compare the nature of these accidents, you can easily understand where Kyle Petty comes from with his statements. As we told in the beginning of the video, we are giving away 5 $50 Amazon gift cards to our loyal NASCAR Off-Track viewers. All you need to do to enter is subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment what you think about Bubba Wallace's actions. We will be selecting 5 random winners from our NASCAR Off-Track subscribers list once this video hits 250,000 views. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, you like the video, and comment in the section below.